Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wholesale Change, the webcast and podcast from Distribution Strategy Group, where we offer thought leadership for wholesale change agents like you. Because if you're on this show, you probably are a wholesale change agent. My name is Jonathan Bine, and I'll be your host today. I am without my partner in crime, Ian Heller, who is on vacation. We have an amazing guest today whom I will introduce later on, but we need to do a little business first to pay the bills. I wanted to announce our Applied AI conference. It's our new live event, Applied AI for Distributors. We're bringing together hundreds of leading distribution and technology experts to Chicago on October 3rd through the 5th of this year. And you do not want to miss this first ever conference, all about how you can leverage AI in your company. We already have dozens of attendees signed up from many of the most admired distributors in the industry. Our keynote speaker is Zach Cass, the head of go-to-market for OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT. This week, we'll be announcing a series of other speakers and panelists who will help you understand how to prepare your company to implement AI, how to secure the talent you need, and to give you great insights on how to develop your AI roadmap and strategy. To find out more, go to our homepage at distributionstrategy.com and click on the top banner for more information. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Epicore. Today's show is sponsored by Epicore, a software company that has helped thousands of wholesale distributors for over 50 years to integrate their business. I'm sorry, I need to share the screen here. To integrate their business functions into one ERP system because of their deep experience in distribution. They understand your world and your unique challenges. Epicore helps companies consolidate systems and processes into one ERP that is ready to use out of the box and allows for long-term growth. If you're considering an acquisition or in the midst of one now, you can learn more at Epicore at epicore.com/distribution. Now I'd like to introduce our guest, Ben Hensler of Motion Control Enterprises, also known as MCE. Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jonathan, thanks for having me.
I know you've got a really amazing story to tell about MCE, because what you guys are doing there is significant, and I'm certain that the private equity folks are really happy. What I'd like to do first is maybe share a little bit about your background, because you've touched a lot of the key places in distribution in your 25 years in B2B. So if you could maybe take us through post-graduation until now, what you've done and where you've done it.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say it out loud, I think I'm aging myself pretty good, but I've been
our hair color is shockingly similar, Ben.
Yeah, I used to call it blonde. I don't get away with that anymore. Yeah, I went to Loyola Marymount. I actually have a degree in communications, television, and film, which is still a big passion of mine. But after a stint in the industry, I moved back to Portland, Oregon, where I'm from, and started in kind of the B2B world in print and fulfillment, so literature distribution, which was a really interesting space. And I was in that space for 4 or 5 years, and great little company owned by a true entrepreneur, and really started to understand selling and sales process and distribution and what all went into it. And you know, it's an industry I think a lot of the people in the world don't know or think a whole lot about, but it's really an industry that keeps everything moving. So it's interesting. I then ended up at Grainger, where I spent the majority of my career. And interesting start with Grainger. I actually worked in the special effects industry, which is where I was after college, and didn't know much about Grainger at the time, except that I was there about twice a week to kind of pick up odds and ends and unique things. And so by the time I was interviewing with Grainger and talking to Grainger, to understand that they were a $5 billion company at the time, and every every city had 3 or 4 stores in it, and Portland had a 10-person sales team. It was pretty interesting, and I love the offer, right? They had the things you need when you need them. And so started as a sales rep in Portland, went on to be a sales leader in the Seattle market, and then eventually headed on to headquarters in Chicago, where I got to do a lot of really interesting things, from working on pricing and designing roles, and then eventually leading kind of the massive Salesforce expansion that Grainger was going through at the time. But really got to understand and work with a lot of people that thought about things in a unique way, where sales and efforts and changes and models were all things that were continuously being improved and analyzed, and really understood better from a financial standpoint. Got a great opportunity to go to FCX Performance, where I met my leader today, Charlie Hale, a great flow control distributor in the space, which got me to where I live now in Columbus, Ohio, and really got to understand not just the private equity space, which was part of where that business was, but and I'll go a little into more detail about this as I go. But if you think about kind of the Grainger world and the Grainger products, it's really easy to convince customers to consolidate spend in lighting and janitorial and kind of general service stuff and tools and safety. But when you go to them and say, well, I think we can handle these complex valves, or this really interesting system that you're trying to buy, they say, no, you can't. That's Jeff, or that's Lisa, or that's Paul. That's these people that were so differentiated because of their knowledge and their ability to specify the products needed for these really technical processes. And when I got to FCX, I finally got to see that firsthand, and see those salespeople that could go in and do that. And it was really awe-inspiring. And so was there through their sale to Applied Industrial, then went on to Test Equity with Charlie as well, another really great company on the test and measurement and electronic production supply space. And then now here at MCE, and really a fabulous last couple of years, really fun time.
FCX did a gaggle of acquisitions. What was the ultimate count that by the time you left, you recall?
Gosh, prior to me being there, FCX had acquired at least 10 to 12 businesses. I think another 10 or so while I was there, kind of 15 to 19. So probably over a couple decades, 20 to 25 acquisitions that build up FCX, including a couple really sizable ones at the end that kind of got it to the size it was at the time Applied bought them. But yeah, a whole lot for sure.
Seems like the companies that do this well, it is actually a core competence.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say do it well. Well, courting companies and going through the acquisition process is one thing. I think building a unique commercial offer that's built around solving problems for customers and bringing new businesses into that culture and arena, and getting them to understand that this offer is now growing because we have more of these wonderful people and this technical knowledge and even better products and manufacturers to offer customers. There's a lot of work there. There's a lot of intricate parts to it. I'd say in general, just like anybody else, we're still figuring it out and getting better at it all the time. But I think it's a good experience, and I think it's something you can do very well. And there's a lot of opportunities financially, commercially, and culturally, I think, as you work through those things.
Before we get into more about acquisition and integration, maybe tell our audience a little bit about Motion and Control Enterprises, MCE. What do you do? Where do you do it? What's really your position in the market? Help our listeners understand about MCE.
Yeah, so MCE Motion Control Enterprises originated as one of the Parker distribution channel distributors. So Parker Hannifin distributor, concentrated in the Midwest, kind of ranging from Pennsylvania to Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin. And a good base business. The original business was known as Ritter Tech, and a lot to offer there, right? Fluid power parts and components are really critical to businesses. That business had and still has a really good engineered solutions group, and that group within our business produces phenomenal things, including test stands and power units and all sorts of stuff that I couldn't even get into the detail of describing, but fabulous solutions for our customers. And I would say that's an offer that in businesses like ours is growing in high demand. And then from there, and I guess I'll pause for just a second, what we saw was an opportunity to provide kind of full life cycle solutions across a group of highly technical products that customers need and can't just get anywhere else, because they can't get the combination of the product and the technical knowledge to solve that. And so if I go back to talking about Grainger, right, it's really easy to consolidate simple products like safety and lighting. But in these technical areas, and for us, that's flow control, fluid power, automation, now process pumps, and a couple others. And there may be a couple outliers to that, like power transmission, but power transmission can be pretty commoditized as well. But it's really these product lines that are not commoditized, have a full life cycle value to the customer, meaning that once they put them into process, they will need more of them and need to replace and repair those products down the road. And so really building that offer of those 4 or 5 primary categories that are critical to these customers, especially process manufacturers and OEMs, and then bundling those together in a way that they can consolidate spend with one supplier and not have to go to 3 or 4 or 5 different suppliers to buy those core products.
Got it. So sounds like, in contrast to a Grainger and that sort of simple product MRO, you're in a lot of cases selling equipment, right? Not just supply.
Yeah, and I would say not just equipment, but assembled and manufactured equipment, right? So not all of it. I mean, there's a lot of parts in the business as well, right? And there's a lot of that goes out the door. But a huge chunk, 30-40% of what we do needs to be technically specified, assembled, in some cases manufactured from scratch and delivered to our customers. Compressed air was the one I missed in the last 2. So compressed air solutions as well, so systems.
Sounds like a really full suite of solutions across this space. Now, you mentioned process industries. What about discrete?
Say that one more time.
What about discrete manufacturing? When you say process, do you mean process as opposed to discrete, or?
Well, I would say it depends a little bit on the unique product set. For example, flow control is much more dominant in process manufacturing. In discrete manufacturing, more and more automation and fluid power solutions are very prominent, right? You're seeing much more robotics, a lot more conveyor systems with sensors and pneumatic controls running them. So that is a dominant area for us. And within that space, a big chunk of that space is actually comprised of OEMs that build systems or subsystems within that. So while the discrete manufacturing may need those products, the company actually manufacturing those products are an OEM that's putting together. For example, last week I was just at a fabulous OEM. So WeatherTech floor liners, I'll give you an example, right? You think about them, WeatherTech floor liners, and they're using kind of a thermal press process to press out those floor liners that they make. Well, there is another company that extrudes the plastic sheeting that that makes those things and makes that machine in particular. Well, I was at the company that makes that extrusion machine, and with a really fabulous rep on our team that just looks at that piece of equipment. And this is a piece of equipment that's 20 feet long and 15 feet wide and has all sorts of stuff on it. And he looks at that equipment and can kind of just look at it and understand all the components within it that we sell and help that customer really decide which ones of those unique products we can source and we can keep on the shelf for them and provide additional solutions. So it's a great example of where we win for customers like that.
Yeah, sounds like the complexity is really where you guys differentiate, is helping your customers cut through that. Are your products, so you've got stuff on the factory floor, is your stuff actually making it into the product they're selling as well in some cases?
In a lot of cases.
Okay.
Like the one I just told you, the company's actually making that extrusion machine. They're selling it to a company like WeatherTech to put into their process. And they may be only making 20 of those a year, but it's a high value machine, but we're selling the components to that machine rather than something that's being used within the process.
So as you mentioned to our audience, we love questions. There is a Q&A button at the bottom. And when you ask the question, we'll make a decision whether to handle it in the moment or near the moment of you asking it, or whether perhaps to defer it until later. Also, I should say that when people pose a question as anonymous, I will ask you to identify yourself and then re-ask the question. We don't take questions from anonymous attendees. So with that, let's start to talk about in the private equity world.
Mm-hmm.
They look at companies as either platforms or add-ons, right? You want to maybe give a definition of how they think about that?
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, in that you want to start with a platform company and then add additional companies onto that. But I would say the platform company can be a pretty small company or small to medium-sized company, and you may end up adding on bigger companies than that as you move through the process. And I may butcher this a little bit, but I think when we look at companies, we really look at kind of two things. One, do they fit into this world we're trying to create, right? So lifecycle solution products in flow control, fluid power, compressed air, automation, process pumps, in that arena, do they fit, right? And there are companies we buy that are just outside that, but then we look to the next piece, which is, are they providing something unique and different to this same market that is truly beneficial? And when I say that, I think of a company we brought into MCE, Lone Star Machine Works, out of the Dallas area, that just does phenomenal work. I mean, they do repair and remanufacturing of massive hydraulic cylinders, a lot in the steel and crane industry. And the way they did that, the way this entrepreneur leader, Michael, has gone through the process and design of doing that, and doing it at the speed that those customers need, meaning they have an arm on a furnace cauldron go down on Friday, he can have them back up and running on Monday, which is just truly a feat. So one, we're looking for companies that fit right in the space. And two, we're looking for ones that really bring a unique and wonderful new offer to the industry. And we see that as one that we can expand throughout our entire geography. And then I think there's a little bit of a geography play, right? We've been working predominantly in the Midwest. We're now in kind of the Mid-South, Gulf Coast, and now the East Coast as well. But we kind of see us filling in the East and, working our way west eventually. And then I think the last piece of that is really staying true to our vendors, suppliers, and manufacturers, right? And making sure that we continue to grow with those vendors, suppliers, and manufacturers, because we believe they're the best and the ones we should go to market with.
So it sounds like in a lot of cases, you're looking for something that's complementary, not just replicating what you have in a new location, but bringing something new to the portfolio.
Yeah, the replicating would be purely a geographic play, right? It would be expanding geographically, whereas finding those unique adjacent offers that fit within the space we're talking about, that's phenomenal. Because take automation as a platform. Maybe you're working in kind of the conveyor and kind of little bit of kind of automation manufacturing space. But then you look at an automation company that's doing something state of the art that's never been done before. That's the type of stuff that's really intriguing, and we absolutely want to get involved in.
Let's talk a little bit more about this concept of a platform. I kind of harp on it. I'm going to throw out an idea that an element of your platform is anything that, when applied to the add-on company, will predictively create value in some period of time. So it could be you're really good at buying, right? And that process gets filtered into the add-on company, the acquired company. It could be, hey, we've got a great proactive inside sales group, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is that a reasonable definition for a platform element?
Yeah, so understand where you're going. Yes, absolutely. And so in general, we want to move our businesses into the platform and take advantage of the things you're talking about. So we are launching and have been launching multiple things like this. I saw one of your next visits is with Proton AI. That's a tool we've been using, we love. We think it applies to all the businesses we work with. It's a phenomenal way to add value to integrated businesses, and one that we absolutely want to share and use across the business. That would apply to inside sales, pricing technology, and more, as far as the platform goes. One is just the access to the customers. So one of our big drives, especially as we layer these businesses on top of each other in the same market, is make sure that we're using the power of our relationships within the platform to have customers go in and sell those offers. And in fact, we've gotten to where about 5% of our business is driven by that now, where we've used an existing relationship to sell adjacent products. And we really think that's a huge part of the platform as well. So, and then there are other companies that, we really feel like should sit in kind of a GM structure for a longer period of time, and really hold on to what's been happening so well with them. Not that we won't provide, as you said, inside sales or marketing or these other things to them. And then there's a bunch of little stuff that happens up front, right? So as you add customers to the platform, just general branding, look and feel. We want to be aggressive in social and email marketing on behalf of every company within the platform. So there's stuff like that that's going on as well.
So the private equity folks often will go to pricing as part of a platform. And I can see from our list of attendees, there's at least one attendee who's made pricing part of their platform. Talk about how that works, what you've seen with pricing as from the platform to the add-on companies.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite subjects. I've worked a ton on pricing with 3 or 4 different companies now. And for me, there's a couple of components to pricing. We've adopted Sparks IQ, and we work closely with them. I know you guys do as well. I think they provide a great model, and simple to use, easy to understand, easy to adopt, easy to put in place. And kind of going through the change management, you think about these smaller businesses that are so exciting. They've all been built from scratch by an entrepreneur, and have gotten to a place and built to there from nothing almost. And I commend those leaders for doing that. But often in that, pricing is a pretty simple process, right? Margin based or some simple way. And I think as you bring these companies in to help them move through the change of understanding that pricing can be very strategic, and that through that strategic pricing, we can be more profitable. is really important, and we've done that. But as I've worked through this with 3 or 4 companies now, the thing that really sticks out to me going through the process, and this is really a sales side thing, is that sales reps start to understand the immense value that they're bringing to these customers. And that pricing or margin or any of those things are really secondary to the massive value they're providing. And I'll give you a story. This was from a few years ago, and I was just learning kind of the flow control industry, and I went with a rep into a stainless steel mill, and we walked up a 4-story catwalk. It's 105 degrees. We've got fireproof suits on, and we go into the room that moved all the gases for these giant furnaces, and you could hear it. And there was a sign on the wall that and a beacon, and it basically said, if this beacon goes off, try to call your significant other, right? Because you're not going to make it down from here, right? So scary environment. We've got flak all over us, and there's this giant skid of valves that's moving and measuring all of this gases that are firing these furnaces, and it's loud and it's roaring. And we spent over an hour in that room. And this person, as he walked through the pipes and around and investigated every valve, in the time he did that, he hand drew the entire process on a single piece of paper and graph paper. And I was just so amazed and blown away by what he did. I mean, I was utterly amazed. And, we finally went away and wiped the sweat off from the dirt office. And we got down to a coffee shop, and we went back and talked to the manager ahead of that. And he explained to him that this was going to take about 3 weeks, and we'd have 2 people working full time in that room, in that environment, repairing valves, switching them out. At the same time, about half of the valves you would bring in and fully replace. And I get down there and we sat down, and I said, hey, in your mind, kind of just top of your head, what do you think this is worth? And he said to me something like $25,000. And I was just so blown away, because in my mind, it was like a $500,000 project, right? That was going to take all this extra work and time and effort. And that really set me on a path of, as much as I can ever explain a pricing process or a pricing strategy or a pricing solution, I'd rather have people understand that the work you're doing, no one else can do. And it truly is a value that these customers can't find or negotiate to or navigate to. And that has such intrinsic value that you should really not be thinking about the price as like the bid to win the business. You should be thinking about the price that delivers that value. And as I see salespeople make that transition, one, margins go up a whole bunch. Their commission goes up a whole bunch too. And they live that. They understand how much value they're bringing that customer. And so as much as we move through pricing solutions, I really think moving through a culture of pricing that helps customers or helps those sellers understand that the things they're doing, no one else can do. And we really bring, as MCE, this massive value to those businesses.
It's interesting, Ben. I think we do a ton of surveys as part of the CX work we do for our customers. And we look at about 10 to 15, maybe 18 different things. Price in importance is usually 3rd through 6th. Right. I've never seen it first. I've rarely seen it second. So that makes all the sense in the world. Let's talk more about the Proton thing. So is that a cross-selling benefit, or how would you describe that platform element, and how does it benefit your add-on companies?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, we're underutilizing Proton today. We're going to expand with them quite a bit. We're working through data management side stuff that'll help us do that. and get it into other platforms. But today it's in a couple of our platforms, and we use it basically as, simply put, an upsell, cross-sell marketing structure. It's really nice. Basically, their platform builds widgets of our products, and it makes recommendations based on adjacent products. There's kind of three elements we use. One is churn, which is like if a customer had been buying this product but hadn't for a period of time and you're interacting with them. The other is adjacent, kind of horizontally. So you're buying size 12 and you should probably buy size 13 too, right? So that one. And then the last one is adjacent vertically, which is you're just buying connectors, you're not buying the hoses. You know, you should buy the connectors and hoses too. And the process sits in our customer experience team, and basically they make recommendations at any point they're interacting with the customer. So it doesn't matter if it's a quote, order follow-up, that information is available to them real time. And all they have to do is copy and paste the widgets into the email and say, you may want to think about this as well. And we're attributing pretty good revenue to that over the last couple of years. So good platform.
And so that makes your average sales rep look a little bit more like your best sales rep on the one hand.
It is. So for those, you know, a little bit of difference between customers that are assigned and not assigned, but for any assigned customer, the sales rep is automatically getting benefit of that marketing that the customer experience is doing on their behalf. Absolutely.
And then also the customer service rep is now, you don't usually attribute revenue to a customer service rep, but they just start to get a little bit of that benefit, right?
So not only can we attribute it to them, but we get the benefit of studying it over time, and we can tell. And I would say at first with any process like this, you don't know what the mix is, right? You don't know how many or how few or how far off adjacent you should be. And what we get to do is study that over time and start to narrow the work and the type of work that each of them do so that they all kind of contribute evenly to the process. And over a couple of years, Jennifer and Jared and the people on the team that are doing that have done a really nice job of kind of leveling up that marketing talent across the CX team.
Perfect. Now, one of the things you mentioned earlier was selling adjacent product. I've seen deals where the promise is we're going to cross-sell what the other team sells, and I've seen that not go well in some cases. And I've seen it more where there's complexity and technical expertise in the thing that's being sold, right? So, but you're saying you are getting good lift from that. Talk to us about that element of your platform.
Well, let me start by saying I've been in the other boat. I've been where it's been really tough culturally, right? That's different than what I do. I do this over here, that happens over there. And we've got a couple markets where teams really sit right on top of each other, providing the same offers, you know, to start with a lot of customers. You know, I'll go back to some work we were doing with your company a couple of years ago and kind of looking at potential and spend across the markets. And what I was blown away with, the first cut on that was about a 20,000 customer view and kind of our first 5 acquisition companies. And of that 20,000 customers, only 400 of them were buying from more than one business, right? Before we really got into cross-selling. And what we've happened, and I'd say, first, there's kind of 3 types of cross-sell that we have going on. And the biggest one that we're measuring, the measurable one, is when companies transfer product and then sell it, right? So I'm going to sell this product I haven't normally sold, but it's available to me now. I'm going to bring it in, I'm going to sell it to that customer. That we're measuring, it's going really well. And adjacent to that, we're seeing this kind of same levels move through our CRM and our opportunity. But we have a whole bunch else going on that's just relationship transfer, a lot of 4-legged, 6-legged sales calls where we're going in with all these different offers simultaneously and talking to customers. We've added a corporate accounts team to that effort for really big customers that not only see the value of those products and solutions, but see the value of consolidating that business too, and kind of leveraging the scale of that. So that's another piece of that. And then, the last one are ones where we actually turn it over. So I'll use Lone Star Machine Works, that company. It's a pretty complex solution they're offering. So we just deal with commission on the back end. But if somebody has a lead in their business, they just turn that over to them. They handle the work in its entirety. So those are the three types of cross-sell. And we're having tremendous success. We're up to about 5% of the business and growing doing that. And I would tell you, and we are going to get even better at this, but it starts with culture. We had a really great national sales meeting last year. We're going to continue to do that process, but bringing those people together in large settings like that, in training settings where you're training them on the product at the same time, kind of, we've done things like, we call them speed dating, where you go and two people meet and they talk about the best 4 or 5 customers they can go to together. And then they go out there and see that. And some of the calls I've been on when we do that, we kind of get everything going together. We bring 3, 4, 5 solutions at the same time. We try to talk to both end users, kind of in engineering and manufacturing and operations, and try to talk to procurement and finance to kind of really bundle holistic solutions. But that last piece is important. It's really about culture more than anything, and helping people understand that while the products I've traditionally sold are a little different than those ones, we're talking to the same people. We're talking about similar processes. And while, the hoses and fittings on the robotic system may be over there, and that panel may be over there, and the flow control and valves may be over here, same customers, same opportunities. I'll go back to that, the calls I was on last week with this guy, Jeff, again, phenomenal guy. All of these really heavy OEM, heavy fluid process, lots of pneumatics, lots of hoses and connectors. They all had panels and electronic interfaces and all that on it too. So he's actually, I think it's today, he's back out with his automation peer at those same companies, going through those other offers and areas. So good opportunity.
And so then when that knowledge transfer starts to take root, it goes from a 6-legged call to a 4-legged call, and maybe reverts to a 2-legged call over time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, in the platform business, what you're saying right there starts to lead into kind of what the sales model will evolve into over time. And, we're not evolving at hyper speed at all, but part of this goes to, and you've talked about this a lot, and you and Ian have, and that is that the technical role in the businesses, whether that's at the manufacturing customer, at the distribution, or even at the manufacturers, the vendors that we work with, is retiring, right? And there's been a lack of replenishment for the last couple of decades. So that technical knowledge that existed within our customers is going away, and they're more reliant on us. And it's harder to kind of, the platform of bringing someone in and making them a 20-year technical expert overnight is very tough too. So you have to think about over time of really having this strong layer of technical expertise in the business. And so as you get down to that 2-legged call, what's really important is that those additional resources are there, right? So that when they see an automation opportunity, they see a compressed air opportunity, or they see a fluid power opportunity, they know that they can go to that specialist and bring them in and help solve that problem.
That makes all the sense in the world. You have the fortune of working with one of the real giants in the whole acquisition space, Charlie Hale. I mean, he's a veteran of it, got a lot of scar tissue. We'd love to have Charlie on the show at some point, just to tell that story. But talk to us about how you think about the integration once you get an acquisition done. So the PE folks have done their part. Charlie and the CFO folks have done their part. The ink is dry. What happens then? And what's your role? What do you see in the organization?
Well, and this comes out of bruises and scars too, right? Because we all make mistakes and get to figure it out. You know, in some ways, I think those businesses need to run for a long time, sometimes shorter time, sometimes longer time, as their business, right? They've been doing something unique and well for a very long time. We want to jar that and get that throughout the business. That's the number one thing. And so making sure we understand what makes that business great over a period of time, before we start to fully integrate or bring them into the platform or change sales structures and stuff, we want to make sure that's working really well. I think that's probably the most important thing. Yeah, everybody wants synergies and, you know, cost saving opportunities, and some of those are there, but really it's about that secret sauce and not getting rid of that, I think, is number one. As far as kind of integrating into the platform goes,
So let me just interrupt. So like, do no harm. That would be
yeah,
the first thing, right? Do no harm.
yeah, don't break it. And you know, when you break it, you got to try and fix it. So, and they've been doing it, right? So you don't want to break that. And I would say in that same vein, let the culture spread out, bring people together, let the sellers meet, let sales and customer service meet, let sales and operations meet, right? Let's not worry about the leadership meeting. Let's worry about people getting to know each other within the business and have people tell why this situation's great. Let's have focus groups where we can talk about, you know, what you would like to see in the business. I think those cultural elements are so important. We need to do more of it. I think everybody needs to do more of it. Integration, you know, kind of starts with branding and marketing, right? Just with look and feel, right? We've got a great look and feel going. We want to make sure that those companies come in, share in that look and feel. We want to, you know, social email marketing on their behalf, work on that look and feel, create connections between the websites. So we still, any of our acquisitions that have websites, all those websites still exist, but we change look and feel, we update content a little bit, and then we work on the flows, right? So if you go to our website and you're looking on something in flow control, you may go out to Swanson Flow's website, may send you back to our website, because there's a lot more detail about product and solution offer. So from a marketing standpoint, that's kind of some of the early stuff that happens. And then, you know, eventually we get into kind of integration in customer experience, things like Proton AI, where, right, a platform that works really well, we can share across the business. Often it's about vendors and vendors that can be shared. We have you know, we're building great relationships with our vendors. We're very loyal to them. And so sometimes they may look at an acquisition we make and say, yeah, I'd love to have my product sold by that business as well. And even more importantly, vice versa, where we buy a company, they've traditionally been selling a product in a, you know, maybe smaller geography, but that vendor is very open to that product being sold across the entire platform. And then the last one is services, right? I talked about Lone Star, for example, is a great example, but some of these companies just provide amazing service, whether that's calibration or field repair or in-house repair or engineered solutions. We want to make sure the rest of the business can start to see and have that offer too. And then once that stuff's going, then you start to work into some of the things that we've talked about as well. So pricing, selling process, sales enablement tools, brochures, literature, right? Kind of updating all that sort of stuff becomes important. And then eventually kind of functionalizing is kind of the last thing, where we may fold into existing sales leadership structures or customer service leadership structures. But it's that secret sauce and culture up front that's so important.
I know from having worked with Charlie previously, he really leans towards the house of brands rather than the branded house.
Yes.
And so that presents a different set of challenges in integration, which I think you've just articulated very well. Let's talk a little bit more about the DX part of integration here, because I think that's an interesting challenge in 2023. 15 years ago, it was, I just need to integrate my ERPs. I have, first of all, I have the choice of, is it just going to be the ERPs or am I going to let them run separately? It's a much more complex world now, right? And I wonder if you could comment on that, how you think about it, and maybe what works and what doesn't work there.
Yeah. Well, if you think about the entire tech stack, it's really interesting. Well, let's just start with ERPs. I have been with companies that have gone through very painful ERP integrations. And so, my view on ERP is be careful. And again, don't break something you don't have to break, right? Eventually you want to be on one ERP platform. It absolutely makes 100% sense because, you guys study this very well. We're moving into a much more digital era. Mm-hmm. And the need to sell via e-commerce and even, more market via e-commerce, as you guys know, a small percentage of the orders shopped out there are actually going to be procured that way. But so I think you do need to integrate ERPs eventually, but start by integrating companies that may be smaller and may have a less suitable ERP. Maybe still are in QuickBooks, right? Who knows, mm-hmm. Right? Integrate them, right? Because that's going to be an upside benefit. You're not, your risk of breaking something's pretty small. And really, I would also say pick the platform that you're going to land on early is really important. So, you showed Epicore. I think they make a great product. There's some others out there, but decide what that is, and then just start moving in the right order businesses into that platform. And in the meantime, there's lots of stuff you can do. We've built what we call a data warehouse where ERP information is integrated and we service it out of that via a few different BI tools and get at that information. We actually use that platform to feed other things like our CRM and other things that we're using. So I think there's ways around kind of jumping into ERP integration that are really important, and lots of companies that can help support that work out there, right? You don't have to break it because everybody's saying that's the big thing you got to do right now. I think you can kind of ease into that and use other BI platforms to integrate your data. But once you've got the data integrated, what's available is really amazing. So Proton AI, we use HubSpot, we use ZoomInfo, we use a bunch of these platforms that are available now today, or tech stacks, or we used to call them wraps, right? Something you wrap around the ERP to make the interface experience better. And there's so much more. We just started our new e-commerce platform as well. As far as the tech stack goes, I would say, yeah, you eventually have to integrate ERPs. If not, centralize your data and have it in one platform so that you can get at it easily. And I mean, if you think about stuff we talked about, understanding the market, cross-selling, knowing the customer across your platform, you've got to have data integrated in order to do those things. So it's really important. And whether that's in a singular ERP or a data warehouse platform, I think those are really important. And then, I mean, the research on what's available, clearly a pricing model, while it's not a technology per se, I think is really important. I think marketing platforms like Proton, marketing automation like a HubSpot or others, data information like ZoomInfo, those are really, really important add-ons to the stack. And then there's a lot of others that are, if they're not part of the ERP, are really critical. Things like your service platform. Some companies need a rental platform, right? Mm-hmm. There's a whole bunch of others there as well. But I do think it's important, but I don't think you have to break an integration because you want to rush them into an ERP platform or change that. I think there's ways around it.
It's interesting you mentioned that. There's one company we know of that's private equity backed, and I am told they do soup to nuts integration in 90 days. Brand, ERP, everything is done in 90 days. I don't know how well it's working. I mean, the company is growing very rapidly. So there are definitely different approaches to integration. I've also seen some big deals done recently where there's minimal integration, where they just really pass it on to the next buyer. And I just think that's less and less viable these days, because again, it's not, oh, we have 6 different systems, therefore it's 6 times as hard. No, it's 6 times 6, right? I mean, it's more like a multiplicative thing than an additional thing. And so this digital Tower of Babel we live in just gets more complex with every acquisition you do, and it's not linear.
No, and now AI is going to change all that again significantly, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, but I agree wholeheartedly with what you said, right? Even the ERP integrations I've gone through that are painful, once you're through it, that's a sales benefit for the business, right? I mean, that you don't have to do that again is really good. And those companies like you talking about that are integrating immediately, I would guess that they have built that strong platform. They have the resources in place to do that. They've built a process and structure that works really well. They're very good at training the new team members on that stuff, right? So yeah, that's an ideal state. And for companies that are there and doing that, awesome, right? That's exactly where you want to get to. 90 days, maybe a little fast, but still, right? If you want to build that platform and you found a unique offer that you can bring all these customers, and you want to get that business, that secret sauce over there into that platform, absolutely.
Yeah. Final footnote on that piece, then I want to take a good question we have from the audience. That particular company that I'm referring to is more like a Grainger. It is more replicated than the heterogeneous environment that you have. So we have a great question here. So have you integrated your CRM with multiple companies as part of their platform? Have they been able to integrate their CRM? So what's your story with CRM?
Yeah, we have more than half of our companies on the CRM. It is integrated with what I referred to as the data warehouse. So it's not integrated directly with any particular ERP. It's integrated with the warehouse, and we work that way.
So the warehouse is effectively the middleware, right?
Yeah, it's a middleware. It's like a data ERP middleware, basically.
Yeah, terrific. Well, Ben, this is an amazing story. Just watching what you and Charlie are building, the rate at which you're building it, the success. We look forward to tracking this over time and seeing where it goes. So thank you very, very much for your time today.
Well, Jonathan, thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned Charlie several times. It's been a pleasure working with him and for him, and watching him work. And as I think really quickly, I wish I had the opportunity to thank a whole bunch of other people, because it's not just me or just Charlie or the two of us. There is a massive group of people working incredibly hard to make this company what it is.
No doubt. This could not be done by 2 people. So, okay, I want to share a little bit about what's coming up in future sessions. So August 1st, is that a week from today? No, that's a week from yesterday. That's Tuesday. Tuesday, we're going to have a session on AI, machine learning, and robotics for distributors, sponsored by Proton.ai, Esker, and Bloomreach. 2 weeks from today, I think I have that right now, we're going to be looking at channel trends in electrical distribution, really broader distribution channel trends, featuring David Gordon, who is the founder of the Channel Marketing Group. That will be sponsored by White Cup. That is another Wholesale Change show. So we thank you for your time today again, Ben, and to our listeners, wishing you the best and look forward to seeing you soon.